Begin with breaking news. Maine Secretary of State is removing former President Donald Trump from the state's 2024 primary ballot. Democrat Shenna Bellows issued her decision tonight. She's the first Secretary of State to make this move following a similar decision by the Colorado Supreme Court. All of this is expected to end up at the U.S. Supreme Court. Thanks so much for joining us tonight at 11 o'clock. I'm Tiffany Murphy. We're getting local reaction at this hour to this historic decision right here in New England. ABC 6 News anchor Alyssa Azara spoke to Rhode Island's Secretary of State Greg Amore. She joins us live right now, and you asked him if this could happen here in Rhode Island. What did he tell you, Alyssa?
That's right, Tiffany. Given Rhode Island law, Secretary of State Greg Amore says he does not have the power to remove former President Donald Trump from the primary ballot, adding that it's a mistake for a partisan Secretary of State to make a decision that should be left up to the courts. Maine's Democratic Secretary of State Shenna Bellows ruling Thursday night that former President Donald Trump should be removed from the state's presidential primary ballot, doing so under the Constitution's Insurrection Clause. That's a Civil War era provision in the Constitution preventing anyone who engaged in insurrection from holding office. Trump critics have used the provision to challenge his eligibility to run for president again in a number of states, citing the January 6 Capitol riots.
The oath I swore to uphold the Constitution comes first and foremost. The textual analysis of the Constitution and the facts laid before me at the hearing that I was obligated to hold under Maine law brought me to this decision.
Rhode Island Secretary of State Greg Amore, a Democrat, says it's unfair to ask the Secretary of State to make that decision, but says the reality is Bellows had to make a decision based on the facts in front of her and Maine law.
She is the arbiter of ballot placement questions. That is not the case in Rhode Island, but she had to make a decision under Maine law. And the unfair part about this, in my view, is that you're asking a Secretary of State to adjudicate a federal constitutional question, and that belongs in the courts. Now, I can't imagine that anybody foresaw that this would happen.
Amore says Bellows' decision to remove Trump from the ballot is both surprising and unprecedented, but in some ways also expected, adding his office has received numerous inquiries asking if Rhode Island will do the same.
Our answer has been the same. If the former president gathers enough signatures and qualifies in all other ways, then according to Rhode Island law, we'll place him on the ballot unless the Supreme Court tells us not to.
Amore says Rhode Island law requires 1,000 signatures and constitutional qualification, and he's leaving any decision beyond that at the federal level.
But again, a Rhode Island Secretary of State should not be defining what insurrection and rebellion is in a federal constitutional case. And that's what this is. That's what judicial review is meant for. And I believe that's where this case will end up.
A federal judge in Rhode Island previously dismissed a lawsuit challenging Trump's right to be on the ballot in the state. The process of preparing the presidential primary ballots in Rhode Island is already underway, and that will continue until January 11th. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court is likely to decide whether or not Donald Trump is eligible to hold office again. Live in Providence tonight, I'm Alyssa Azara, ABC 6 News.